Слава.
Вітаю вас сьогоднішній вечір. Не знаю, чи хтось буде дивитися чи ні, але будемо мати чудову нагоду, значить, прямо перекинутися кількома словами та й побачитися. Я ваші гарні обличчя чудові побачу. І для мене радість буде, і знаєте, значить, і що я вас забачу. Так що давайте розпочнемо з молитви.
Давайте.
Отець Декан, як звичайно.
Отець Декан,
Во
так.
ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Царю Небесний, утіши Духу правди, що всюди все наповняє, скарби життя добра подати. Прийди, вселися в нас і очисти нас від всякої скверни, і спаси милосердні душі наші. Слава Отцю і Сину і Святому Духу, нині повсякчас на віки вічними. Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй, благослови.
Отче Ігоре.
Сам Христе Боже, поблагослови нашу зустріч цього вечора, що було тобі на славу, а нам на спасіння. Амінь.
Амінь.
Отця і Сина, Святого Духа.
Отця і Сина, Святого Духа, амінь. І Отця і Сина, Святого Духа, амінь. І Отця і Сина, Святого Духа, амінь. Слава Ісусу Христу!
Слава
На
навіки,
віки
слава.
слава.
Отже, ще раз для тих, хто дивляться, глядачі, просимо давати нам знати, чи ви бажаєте українською, чи англійською мовою. І ми тоді будемо старатися пристосовуватися до ваших побажань, щоб ви зрозуміли. One more time, we are just asking those who are watching us online whether we should speak in English or in Ukrainian, so we will be able to adjust the language according to the viewers' needs. Сьогодні є 2 дні до того дня, як буде свято Святого Андрея Первозваного, і, знаєте, наша колегія Святого Андрея носить ім'я Андрея Первозваного, знаєте. І якби нормально все було, то якраз цю неділю, звичайно, відбувається рукоположення. So on the Sunday, we're going to celebrate the feast day of St. Andrew the First called. And of course, on that Sunday, normally, we have lots of temples in our church that dedicated to St. Andrew the First called. Of course, the nice legend about St. Andrew the First called, who came to the mountains where a cave was built after that, and then went to Novgorod. But also, for me personally, I guess for Father Ihor too, that it's St. Andrew's College in Winnipeg celebrates its parish patron feast day. And normally in this type of circumstances, there would be an ordination or two around this weekend, and there would be a nice, beautiful celebration there. However, it's not, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I'm not quite sure what it is, but Igor, maybe you know something better.
I'm not sure. But I did spend 4 wonderful years from 1968 to from 1964 to 1968 at St. Andrew's College, studying there, and it was really, really a wonderful time.
It was lucky because those people like pioneers of the clergy, like Father Metropolitan Larion, Otec Yarmus, Otec Minenko, those priests that who came from Ukraine.
Yes, I was still fortunate enough to be taught by Metropolitan Ilarion.
Yes.
And Father Savchuk, Professor Mulik-Lutzek, Father Serhiy Gerus, and of course we had as our liturgist Archbishop Iov Skakaiski, a very firm and stern monk who kept us in line.
Well, theology students, like any other students, of course, always have an opportunity to rebel, or disagree with something, yes. Right? And
we were somewhat rebellious.
Yeah. I guess that's what do you call that movement that was there that you guys were known for? It was a charismatic movement, right? Was it your time or it was later?
Oh, that was later. The charismatic movement was later.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm kind of smiling about this, is that all of the movements in the church, actually, or all in the student environment that you would have, they give birth to a good dialogue if properly conducted, and it is done for the benefit of the church. We don't always have to
Yes.
agree with each other at everything about everything, right? But the whole point of it is that upon this discourse, or if not discourse, this new search, always comes the truth. Always comes, and something better comes in. So in Ukrainian there is that there is that приказка, there's a proverb or saying, в тихому болоті чорти водяться,
Mhm.
So it's better to those.
Не чорти, а жаби.
А у нас
So-
ніколи не була тиха вода.
У нас ніколи такої води не було, такого болота не
Ніколи
було.
тихої води не було. Ну.
Yeah. I think that in early 90s, when I was at St. Andrews College, we also had quite a movement, quite rebellions, and
Yep.
it was brought up by different things, and but I think our graduation, the year when we had been at the college, had probably produced had produced a lot of priests that are serving right now at
Yes.
Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Canada, so I guess in all this discussion, like I said, new ideas are born, and new thought processes, and new friendships, and sometimes new foes. But anyways, it's all for the benefit of the church and for the grace of God, I guess. Отже, Володимире, what would you like to chat about today?
Well, I think maybe it would be nice to chat about the Різдвяний піст. Це Пилипівка. Ми називаємо Пилипівка. Це є піст, який готує нас до містерії, до зустрічі з нашим Господом, народження Його. І от якраз цей піст нас готує до цієї події. І по можливості ми пробуємо його, так би сказати, дотримуватися по можливості. Є різні обставини, де людина, можливо, не має такої, значить, не то, що можливості є, можливо, немає і обставини, чи стан здоров'я, і так далі, і так подібне, розумієте. Щоб справді, але тут мова не тільки йде там їжа і подібне. І я думаю, що це було би гарна нагода поговорити нам про цей піст. І взагалі, що таке піст. І якщо подивитися для мене, піст, так я, він ще почався...
But I think you're expected to speak in English.
Okay. So so the people are required to talk to English, yes?
That's
Yes.
what they're requesting.
Okay, so I think the best. I suggest let's talk about the Advent. Pilipiuka, the Lent. That we prepare ourselves. To before the Christmas, the
Pre-Christmas fast.
The Christmas fast. Yes.
Pre-Christmas fast.
Yes. So I think that would be nice to talk about this, because this is also it's comparing to the Lent that before the Easter. This is also the before the Christmas, also important event. The Nativity, and how we trying to keep this fast, in order to meet the Nativity of Jesus Christ. So let's talk about this, and so some kind of it came to my mind, where the feast, not the feast, the feast itself, it started, I don't know, to me, like, it started from the first people, Adam and Eve, in paradise, when the Lord said, look, this, you can eat, but this you have to abstain. You have to abstain. This is not allowed to eat, because if you touch it, so this is the consequences will be, you'll die. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of to me, that time the peace started. So what do you think, Otche Ihor?
Well, yeah, I don't know which Otche Ihor. That's the whole
Which
thing.
Otche Ihor? There's two of us.
Okay, Otche Ihor, patriarch nasz, Otche Ihor,
Well,
Senior.
the patriarch is the one in the capital city of Canada. That's Ottawa.
Okay, we got it. Okay.
I just wanted to quickly add, I'm not. That's Otche Ihor, my dear Otche, as a theology professor. I just wanted to ask you the following question: is that, do we really have an Advent? Like, we don't call it Advent, right, in our church, the Lent before Christmas.
That's a Western term, the term Advent, but we don't need to object to it, because Advent means that something important is coming. And what is it that's coming? The birth of Christ. So it's a good term, but we don't call it Advent. We call it the pre-Christmas fast, or we can call it. It's sometimes from the Ukrainian. It's called the St. Philip's fast. Oh, Father has disappeared. Did you fall, Father?
No, I'll be back, because I have to get my charger, to charge.
Okay. It's just that he suddenly disappeared in a flash of light. He looked like super priest.
Yeah, it's there's an interesting article by Father Nicholas Denisenko, or Deacon Nicholas Denisenko,
yes,
printed last year on is there an Orthodox Advent? He says, So he had quoted Bishop Metropolitan Job Getcha about this, about the meaning of the Advent in the Orthodox Church, as well as the meaning of the Sundays before the Orthodox Church. And he emphasizes the fact that that in the Orthodox Church, the last two Sundays before the Christmas, Nativity of Christ, are very much preparatory Sundays for that. And of course, the Nativity fast gets stricter and stricter the closer it gets to the Nativity of Christ. And since we also touched that topic of Nativity of Christ, it would be kind of interesting and good to talk about the fact how we're going to celebrate Christmas this year, because I know that in the city of Montreal, where my good respectful brothers are, there is really strict prohibitions about the Nativity fast, right? Sorry, Nativity fast, about the
celebration of Christmas.
Celebration of Christmas, right? How many people? 15 people per church is allowed, up to maximum?
I believe 25.
Or 25 and stuff like that. So in Ottawa, it's in comparison to the rest of Ontario, we are allowed to actually up to 50 people in an indoor space, if space permits. Our church does not permit 50 people. Our church permits only about 30 people, including clergy. But we also have a hall downstairs. So in that hall downstairs, up to 50 people can fit for the worship. We have not made a decision about this, about how to celebrate Christmas, what services will be celebrated, which ones online and which one in person. And that's why Father Volodymyr talked to me before our broadcast, and I think that's a good conversation to talk about as well, now that we prepare for Christmas, what do we do? What do we get? Like, how do we celebrate Christmas to accommodate the most people to come to a chalice, for communion, or how do we celebrate Christmas and not break the secular civil laws around it to protect us, and so on and so forth. What do you think, fathers?
Well, for me, it's I am quite sad that for the first time since 1973, I will not be able to be with my family in Alberta for Christmas. So that's sad. But at the same time, we are saying that we will get together and celebrate Christmas in July, when hopefully the pandemic is over, when we will be able to get together. But we are we are not going to be having services in Święta Pokrowa. We will continue to do it at St. Sophie. That is Father Volodymyr, myself, and 2 singers, so 4 people, and of course the operator of the camera. Although right now it's set up so that even that the streaming is not done. The person doing it is not at the cathedral. He does it from his own home because he set it up so proficiently. So basically, it will only be 4 people present doing that. Although I don't know, there is a possibility that other people will come, but only 25 people, and they have to register in advance.
Correct. Well,
so because it's came to my mind, like I just started thinking that because it's a not regular Sunday, it's a Christmas, it's a big event, like it's a big feast. I mean, and usually on this feast, more people want to come to the church than other Sunday, like Jordan or Easter or Christmas. So I was just a bit concerned about what's happened. Like some people will able to come, they can register in advance, or some people they will not able to come because there's a limitation and so on. It might be some people will be said, I'm lucky I wasn't at the church, and I couldn't come because it's a limited and so on. I just more sensitive that some people will be feel upset, said okay, feel kind of you know what I mean. I don't want to turn away nobody, like so I'm more inclined, that's my kind of suggestion, like and feeling, kind of personal feeling that instead of keep it that just have only online to everybody, that everybody can watch, participate online, so that's way that nobody will feel hurt or put away, or rejected, or what I mean. So I I'm sensitive of this. I don't know. Maybe you can. Yeah, because of the Sunday, regular Sunday problem. But
sorry.
Yes.
I'm listening. Sorry, I'm just trying to see the statistics on my phone. Who's listening and stuff like that. So that's why it's had made some noise. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, no, basically that's my feeling, so I don't know, I will not decide yet, we just in the process, will not decide yet either, to have a 25 either, because at the beginning, even with I discussed with the I spoke with our Holovai and so on, and so we talked, maybe might be have 2 services, like one upstairs, and right after one, like noon service, obitnica, you know what I mean. So that at least we have a 25, and another 25 I have a 2, because we have also my people from Pokrova also would like to come too. So we have 2 parishes. So
yes,
I'm just.
It's very interesting. If you can have 2 liturgies, that would make sense, right? because then both groups can have communion. But if it's one liturgy, one obidnitsa, that's I don't know. I'm just speculating this because in I just remember that from many of people, like of older generation especially, it was when you have a service for Christmas, you have to have you must have the
I'll call you back in about a
communion
half
as
hour.
well, so
I'll call you
that's
back
why
in
it
a half hour,
is very
okay?
so pivotal and important. Okay, to have a communion.
Yeah. Well, because usually we can keep the communion from the first, from the first divine liturgy. You know what I mean. You can keep the communion, and we can, we give it communion. People would like, on obedience, they will come to the obedience. So we have a communion from the first slужба.
Mm-hmm. Otche, what do you think about it, Otche?
Well, because of the fact that there are reserved sacraments in the church, which we prepare, it's possible at any time to give people communion, providing people are prepared for that. And of course, in this situation of the pandemic, we need to give communion in a special way. That is, we don't wipe the mouth with the cloth. And for each person, we use a separate spoon for each person. So, and as a matter of fact, Patriarch Bartholomew, in his direction, said that this could be done.
Okay, all right. Well, which is what we do in our church since March 15th, because even it was the strict restrictions we had during last Pascha, up to 10 people that could be present at the church. We still had people coming for communion. Almost everybody who were in church would come for communion. Because especially during the Pascha celebration, Holy Thursday, Plashanetsia, sorry, not Plashanetsia, but Holy Saturday, and all of those services, people would like to come and would like to participate. And it was very blessed, to have all this together.
At Święta Pokrowa, I have about a 25-minute service every day. It's called an akathist to the Chinese martyrs of the Boxer uprising. I have been doing that since March 15th, and it is our effort to overcome the pandemic. Since the pandemic started in China, and we have these 222 Orthodox Christians who were martyred in 1900 because of the fact that the Dowager Empress did not want Christianity to grow in China. And these people were canonized. There is an akathist that was written to them. And so I have been doing that akathist every day since March 15th. And almost always there's somebody there with us. And if people want at that time, if they're prepared, they can. I do give them communion from the reserved sacrament.
Well, it's
but usually
wonderful way to go around, just the liturgical celebrations. The people who prepare can come, and
yes,
almost not almost on every day, but every day somebody new can come and participate of this Holy Sacrament. So that's very very reassuring and important, for our well-being. Отець Володимир щось кашляє.
Are you okay, Father?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, good.
No, that's it's one of those things that we needed to talk about. But in our church, we normally had for Christmas a Christmas Eve dinner. In our
Yes,
church
I remember
hall.
that. It's a lovely tradition. We used to do that at St. Sophie Cathedral also many years ago, 50 plus years ago. We used to have on Światwacher, in case people did not have their own place, we would have it at the church. And I know that in Ottawa you do that regularly.
So it started by our parish member, Margaret Kopala, was about 10, 15 people, seniors, who did not have families in the churches
Right.
to celebrate Christmas together, you know. Then it was way before me. It actually started in 2001. Was you, Father Ihor, there yet? You know,
Yes.
so
But I thought it was before me.
or maybe even before you.
Oh, I
That's
think
right.
it was before
You
me.
know, so basically they started with small groups specifically catered for seniors. You know,
Yep.
they had cater. You know, and it's really Margaret Kopala had set up such a high standard for all of this stuff. You know, it was nice. It was quaint. You know, it was icons, lighting candles, put in the how do you say collage na vikni, lighting the first star, lighting the first candle. It was very, very nice. You know, and then you know, she did it for till about 2009 for about 10 years. You know, and then she could not do it anymore, so I kind of took over, and we were able to grow the celebration to about 150 to 180 people over the last couple of years.
Wonderful.
And then we decided that, you know, no, it when there is that many people for Christmas Eve dinner, the spirit of Christmas is lost. You know, it's just becomes like a party, too many people at the same time. You know, so what we diverted to is basically emphasized is to do Ukrainian Christmas Eve dinner to go. So we would have small yidduch, description of the feast, 12 dishes to go for every family that would order it from us, you know. And that in itself was a very successful venture for that matter, you know. And 2 years ago, we only did Christmas Eve dinner in the hall only for those who worked in church, like for Christmas Eve dinner preparation who worked, for families of those who lost some loved ones in their families. Was my family, and was a couple of seniors who had nowhere to go. Basically, you know, we decreased the size of that celebration or that solemn evening, and even though we decreased it 2 years ago, but we still had about 95 to 100 people coming
Wow.
into dinner. So, but it was a
A
significant decrease.
tremendous success.
But we had year before that, we had 225 people, and we just overstretched our volunteers. So last year we decided to do only takeout dinner to go, you know, basically. And we're hoping to replicate it this year too, you know, to just to have a takeout dinner because, well, number one, it's COVID-19, so you can't have that many people gathered. And number two, it just brings, especially in this time of COVID-19, when there is, you know, families can get together. So the closest family get together and sit and share this meal and celebrate
Yes.
the birth of Christ, you know. And I was thinking about this, you know, that maybe on our church Facebook to have our couple singers from our choir sing couple carols,
Very
and then
nice.
just or maybe even some of our parish members, you know, basically to connect to the Facebook and sing some carols because that's wonderful, you know. Like I mean, just to show that even in this difficult time, we find a way to celebrate truly
To
the birth of
celebrate.
Christ.
That's it. This is the
Yeah.
whole thing.
That's
It's
the
to
whole
show
point
that
of
we are not giving up. We're not letting the COVID and illness and adversity get us down. We have to keep on
absolutely,
keeping on.
absolutely. You know what, you know, I cannot sit still, you know, so I have to do always something, you know.
Very good. Very good.
So we decided it is not firmed in plans yet how we're gonna do it, you know, but that's kind of preliminary thinking, and this by the end of the weekend we'll decide what's gonna transpire. So that's how it is. And reality of it is, you know, again, quite often lots of people have nowhere to go, and if we can have a live connection, live conversation, live singing of the
This is
carols, you know, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, you know.
that's really the purpose of it because a lot of people have some place to go because they have family, but there are people that don't have. So it's important to do something for them.
But even in our times, you know, like lots of you were saying that, you have not celebrated Christmas for first time since for a long time ago already.
Well,
You know,
with my family in Alberta, it's I would always, of course, the Ukrainian holidays I have to celebrate here in Montreal with my parish family, and of course I also have family here too because my son and grandchildren live here, son,
Of
daughter,
course.
grandchildren. So I do have family here. But what I would always do since 1973 for the Gregorian holidays, I would go to Alberta. And in Alberta, they would celebrate it twice because they'd celebrate when I'm able to come, we get together, and there's quite a few of us. We would we'd use the National Hall in our little village of Bellis. When
Wow.
there's 50, 60 people that come, family. And it's a lovely event. But this year, because of COVID, can't do it. We can't get together like that.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they're not even able to rent that hall to anybody now because of COVID in our little village of Bellis. Actually, it's not even a village. It's what's called a hamlet.
Hamlet of Bellis.
The hamlet of Bellis, yes.
Actually, sorry, Volodymyr, I'll just interrupting you so abruptly. I have to tell you, you know, that the idea of that celebration when I came to Ottawa had already been in my mind because we at St. Andrew's College for so many years, even when I was a deacon there, you know, for so many years we celebrated Christmas in Father Bozic and Ganya Bozic, you know, had put together a meal for all theology students, and especially after the Christmas nativity service, you know, everybody would gather together downstairs, you know, and would have a wonderful meal and wonderful get together, you know, and they were very, very hospitable hosts for that type of celebration. So I'm grateful to them for that. Otce Volodymyr, sorry, I interrupted you. You wanted to say something.
No, I know those places that Father you mentioned, like Bellis, because when I was a parish priest in Edmonton, you know, a few times I was going to visit that parish, that hall. I remember, like, you know, it was Providna Nedelia. I was going there. So, and it was at that time the Father Pleva. Pleva, he was a parish priest, Smoky Lake, you know, and also part of that, you know, Bellis as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So
it was lovely place.
It's a lovely place, yes, and it is indeed. And the hall is a very nice hall. Simple, but very nice.
We talking about lovely places. Somewhere on the Facebook, I think you Father Ihor, you saw it. There was a show on how the excavator demolished the church in Gilbert Plain, Manitoba, you know. And I don't know, I probably had that. Good friends of mine live next door to that church, you know, and probably I had a lost baptism in that church 12 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. It's a beautiful church next to the road between Dauphin and Roblin, you know. And I'm so saddened to see that church had been demolished and burnt, you know, because it truly is a wonderful church, you know. And
but this is from our jurisdiction. It's from our
yes,
church.
it is. Yes.
Because I saw, you know, it's why they demolished? Why not?
Well, Otce Ihor, I will let you answer that question because.
Well, it turns out that some of these churches, because they're not being used, because there's not many people, the people have moved from there, they fall into disrepair. And sometimes, so rather than risk the church being desecrated by people who are not really caring for the church, it seems to be better to take it apart and burn it. That's what we do, by the way, with holy objects. We burn them, and when we can no longer use them, we burn them and we bury the ashes in some sacred place. So that seems to be the best way to do it. Of course, it is tragic. One would prefer that these churches, that somebody keeps on looking after these churches, and that at least from time to time there's a service and all that. Unfortunately, because of the fact that there's many such churches here in especially in rural Canada, it doesn't seem to be possible to do that. It's very painful. It's very tragic that such a thing should be. In some cases, wonderful things have been done. The church has been moved to another location, like for example, summer camp. They have one at Moose Lake in Alberta. They've moved the church over there, and it's used when they have summer camp. They use that church and so on. Sometimes it's possible to do that sort of thing. There's another place in
Grimsby.
a few years ago. There was a church that was moved to yes, in Ottawa. In Ottawa, there's a church that was actually moved over, and we were present at the dedication of that. Sometimes it's possible to do that. When it is, that's wonderful. Pardon me?
It's at the Museum of.
But it isn't always possible.
Well, we also know that there's a old church in Portage la Prairie, Manitoba. The old church had been moved, and into their museum, and many other places the church had been moved to the museums to be looked after, cared for, and visited as. Like in Dauphin, Manitoba, for instance, it's what you would call a Canada National Ukrainian Festival site. There's also the church that had been moved there, and it now became the part of the museum, part of the historical Ukrainian.
It's being looked after, it's being dealt with respectfully.
That's right.
But when that is not possible, regretfully, it seems to be the better way to do it is to demolish and burn.
And to tell you honest, though, we there's a good number of those cases. Grimsby, Grimsby, Manitoba, and Camp Veselka, right? The church had been moved there too, right, from this town to the Camp Veselka, and now camp, it's looked after the community as well. We also have that's Volodymyr disappeared again. No, he's appearing again.
Oh, he's here again. He's appeared. He appears and disappears.
Well, let's talk a bit. Why we have to fast. What the fast means, what's the purpose of the fasting, and what fast does for us in term, because the food God created, He gave it the food, and He said eat, it sustain our body and so on, all suddenly, you have to abstain, you have to fast. What's the purpose of the fasting? So this, is very, because some people say fast, like, I have to lose the weight. Yes, could be possibly, I have to lose the weight, but it's more than that. Dieta, it's called dieta, but dieta, related to the something more, particularly we're talking about the before event or feast, big feast, I said we have to fast. Who put this, that church? Why is it so important? Why we need to fast? Okay, so the first I will ask Father Ihor Senior, started, and each was can add it to this, just because we have 15 minutes, until 8 o'clock. So maybe because we started to talk about the fast, nativity,
and we'll finish the fast.
Pilepiuka, and we dropped, and and we started talking about the pandemic. So let's talk a bit quick, short. Like we have 15 minutes on the left. We'll talk about that. Okay, Отче Ігоре, прошу.
Yes, I have heard people say that they can understand why we should fast before Easter, because we're doing it in commemoration of Christ's suffering and dying upon the cross. But then they say that it doesn't make sense. Why are we fasting for Christmas? It's such a joyous thing. Christ is coming to the earth to be with us. Why should we fast for that? But of course, the answer to that is that Christ coming to earth, for us, it's a joyful, wonderful thing. But actually, Christ dying upon the cross, even though it is a tragic thing that he had to die to save us, but that too is a joyful thing because of the fact through that we are saved. And Christ coming to the earth, when you stop to think about it, that too must have been a very difficult and painful thing for him to do. Remember, he's the second person of the Trinity. He's God, right? And to go and become a helpless little baby, right? Completely at the mercy of everybody, and being born in the middle of a cold night, and not even have a warm house around him, but to be born in a stable. And then you think about also the fact that Joseph and Mary, it is during their travels that Christ is born. So he was born in difficult circumstances. And of course, the other thing that's linked with it, and for the holidays that we celebrate among the Orthodox, we also remember that there was somebody who was very, very, very angry and upset that he was born, and that was Herod. He actually went and tried to kill him, and the only reason he didn't succeed is because there was a supernatural intervention. An angel told Joseph and Mary to go to Egypt so that Herod would not get them. But meanwhile, there were many, many children, babies, that were actually killed by the soldiers of Herod. So it's a tragic and horrible thing. There's even a special carol called the Coventry Carol, which is a very sorrowful carol talking about the killing of the babies by Herod. And then the trip by Joseph and Mary to Egypt, that was not an easy thing either. So it is linked with hardship. It's a joyful thing that we celebrate. At the same time, there is hardship, and by fasting, we try to remember that this is a costly thing. That salvation and blessing is something. It's not just something you can take for granted. There's effort that needs to be made. And so what we are given is the opportunity to make an effort. But just abstaining from food is not sufficient, because it's also said, there is the story of in the Desert Fathers, where there is a demon that is tempting one of the Desert Fathers, and he says, "Oh, big deal." He says, "So you don't eat as much when you fast." "We don't eat anything," right? He says, "And you stay up and you keep vigil." "But we never sleep, so we're better than you." But then the father, the monk, says to the devil, he says, "Yes," he says, "but the thing is, you are proud of what you're doing, whereas we are humble. We have humility. We seek to cultivate humility. That is where the difference is."
Mhm.
So the fast, it's a kind of educational purpose to humble ourselves, and food only the kind of just help us to abstain and of the food. It's related to spiritual, to our soul, to the prayer and so on. It is only to educational purpose to humble ourselves, to because we the God himself, he humble himself. he was born in a stable, and you mentioned just recently he humbled himself. So
Yes.
The fasting, we trying to humble ourselves in order, to see, хоч трошки наблизитися до того стану покори, яку Господь пройшов, і щоб ми могли трошечки наблизитися і відчути його і смирення, і покора, і так далі, щоб війти до тої радості і зустріти його народження.
So what Father said is that by fasting, we are seeking to imitate the Lord in his humility, because he humbles himself to become one of us, to become a human being. And so we too are fasting in sympathy and trying to imitate him by doing that.
Yeah, дякую.
So, as I was listening to you, my fellow brother priest, just wanted to tell you that, again, I go back to, I can't, Father Schmemann,
Father Schmemann, yes, wonderful book.
For the life of the world, So
Yes.
his first chapter, again, I can't produce original thoughts, so that's why I plagiarize and read it from somebody else's places, So Father Schmemann, in his book For the Life of the World, his first chapter starts with the following words, and I think it's worth indulge for two minutes those words. So the first chapter says, "The life of the world" is the name of the chapter. So, and he starts the following. He says, "Man is what he eats." Was this statement the German materialist philosopher Feuerbach thought he had put an end to all idealistic speculations about human nature. In fact, however, he was expressing, without knowing it, the most religious idea of man. For long before Feuerbach, the same definition of man was given by the Bible. In the biblical story of creation, man is presented, first of all, as a hungry being, and the whole world as his food, second only to the direction to propagate and have dominion over the earth, according to the author of the first chapter of Genesis, is God's instruction to man to eat of the earth. Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, and every tree which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Man eat in order to live. He must take the world into his body and transform it into himself, into flesh and blood. He is indeed that which he eats, and the whole world is presented as one all-embracing banquet table of man. And this image of the banquet remains throughout the whole Bible, the central image of life. It is the image of life, its creation, and also image of life at the end and fulfillment, that you eat and drink at my table at the kingdom. So again, he starts with the Genesis and finishes with the Apocalypse, the book of Apocalypse. And when we talk about this, about abstaining from food and stuff like that, I think Father Volodymyr had in our church, actually, in St. Pokrova Church during one of the Passia services, he talked about what the original fasting was. Remember, it was the covenant between man and God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So the covenant between man and God, and that covenant had been broken by man, right?
Yes. Broken because Adam ate what he should not have eaten.
That's right. The covenant. So yes, God. Go ahead, Oche. You wanted to say something else.
So then by fasting, what we're doing is we're trying to do correctly what Adam failed to do. Adam ate what he should not have eaten. So what we try to do is we try to abstain from eating, but not just abstain from eating, but abstain from eating in order to remember what our vocation is, what we are supposed to be in the world, how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to be transforming the world, not only by our bodies consuming and turning the world into flesh and blood, but transforming the world by the way we behave in it, by the way we try to make peace between people, by the way we are generous to people and merciful to people, help people, help people realize the true vocation of what a human being is supposed to be. And there's that vocation, that mission is always the most important one.
Yeah. And as I think Father Michailo posed the quotes, Saint Vasily Veliki, you know, Saint Basil the Great about the Lent as well.
Yes.
Exactly what you just were saying for the Ihor, you know. But whenever we talk about fasting, you know, I always remember this first chapter of the book of first chapter of book of Genesis, of course, but also first chapter of the Father Schmeann's book for the life of the world, because it just kind of brings me and reminds me about the reality of fasting and what the food is and what is abstinence, what food is for the eternal life kind of thing. All right. Я не знаю, оці, чи ми маємо ще щось до цього всього додати.
Ну, це дуже гарно. Дуже гарно. Я думаю, що ми будемо далі продовжувати. На другу
П'ятницю.
На новий рік ми зустрічаємося чи ні?
О, на другу п'ятницю зустрінемося, тоді вирішимо, правда?
Так.
Цього року, ви знаєте, я хочу перше, this year I'd like to for first time in my life to serve liturgy on December 25th. You know, it's not going to be a Christmas liturgy or nativity liturgy, but it's going to be a liturgy, you know.
But you know, just a question. Otzi, do you think we should? There's a tendency, you know, to change, you know, to move the calendar, to change the calendar. You know, I mean, not to change the calendar, you know. And if we see across our church cathedral, there is a Ukrainian Catholic church, you know, they decided to, instead of January 7th, they want to celebrate the majority of the parish decided, you know, to celebrate Nativity on 25th. So, and even the Ukrainian, some Metropolitan Mikhail, you know, he celebrated, and last year, I remember, like, you know, he celebrated Nativity on 25th. So there is a more and more we talk about, you know, to in Canada, you know, to change the calendar instead of 7, you know. What do you think? You know, have you thinking about that? Did you discuss your parish? I mean, the member of the parish about this, you know, in order to
a major problem is the fact that we don't only have the two fasts in the church. We don't only have the pre-Christmas fast and the fast before Easter. There is also the fast of before the Dormition. There is no problem with that one. But then there is the fast of the apostles before the feast of Saints Peter and Paul. And that fast, because it's linked with the apostles, that fast begins on the Monday after All Saints, and All Saints is 1 week after Pentecost. Pentecost reminds us that the Holy Spirit came into the world. Why? To make us apostles, to bring the good news to the people, right? The good news is linked with fasting. So there is a fast that begins on the Monday after All Saints Sunday, which is a week after Pentecost, right? It begins on that Monday, and it lasts until the feast of the apostles Peter and Paul. Now, if you change the calendar and Peter and Paul becomes June 30th rather than July 12th, right? And you still have the Easter fast, the fast before Easter, the way it's meant to be, right? Then sometimes it would actually happen that the Apostles' fast ends 2 days before it begins. When Easter is late. And
it happens when
pardon me?
So the latest that Pascha can happen, I think it's what, May 5th, somebody calculated, or end of April, something like that, you know. So when that happens, you're right, it's going to be 2 days of fasting.
That's right. 2 days, it ends 2 days before it began. So then there's no apostles' fast. And that really cuts away the sense that we are called upon to be apostles. Mind you, it's true that many people don't pay attention to that apostles' fast. Petriuka, why do we need that? We don't need that, they say, okay? So just because people don't pay attention to it, is it really a good reason to drop it? Is there not a purpose for that? And I believe there is a purpose for that. And for that reason, I would be opposed to changing the calendar. I think that the best thing we can do is to do it the way we are doing right now. That is the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it means that we are celebrating Christmas at a different time, and not with the rest of the Christian world. Well, you know, there is nonetheless, we don't need to be completely uniform. There is a beauty in diversity, and there's still a unity in diversity. Even though we're celebrating at a different time, we're still celebrating the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think that just because there is that diversity, that ought to be sufficient for us to drop the Julian calendar. That is my opinion, and I have held that opinion for some time.
And then there is a country song that says, "That's my story, and I'm sticking to it."
That's it.
Добре, Оченько. Закінчимо нашу сьогоднішню розмову. Побачимося наступної п'ятниці. We'll finish our conversation today and meet online again next Friday at 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock of Center of Universe's time. Ottawa-Montreal Mission District.
Yeah.
Добре, оці дорогенькі. Скажемо молитву тоді на прощання.
Давайте помолимося.
Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. І Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Богородице Діво, радуйся, благодатна Марія, Господь з тобою. Благословена ти між жонами, і благословений ти плід утроби твоєю. Бо ти породила Христа Спаса душ наших. Слава Отцю і Сину Святому Духу, нині повсякчас, на віки вічні. Амінь. Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй. Отче Ігоре, старший наш, благослови.
Нехай будуть милості великого Бога і Спаса нашого Ісуса Христа за всіма нами. Амінь.
Амінь.
Я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, амінь. Слава Ісусу Христу.
Слава Його, дякую, Отче.